Rising up, took my chances. happens too fast. You trade your passion for glory. Don't lose your grip on the dreams of the past. You must fight just to keep them alive. It's the eye of the tiger, it's the thrill of the fight. Rising up to the challenge of our rival. And the last known survivor stalks his prey in the night. And he's watching us fall in the eye. Don't lose your grip on the, 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 back on the stick, on the stick, on the stick, back on the stick, on the stick, back on the stick, back on the stick, back on the stick, back on the stick, on the stick, back on the stick, on the stick, on the stick, back on the stick, back on the stick, on the stick, on the stick.
You see, if your DJ's whack, turn around to that bitch and say, fuck you. If you playing music and clearing the fucking dance floor, turn around and say, fuck you. Fuck you real good.
Rising up, rising up,
Fuck you.
rising up, took my chances. Rising up, rising up, rising up, back on the stick, 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 rising up, back on the stick, back on the rising up, back on the stick, back on the stick, rising up, 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 back on the stick, 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 on the back on the back on the on the stick, back on the back on the back on the stick, rising up, back on the street. In my time, took my chances. Went the distance, now I'm back on my feet.
Cheat curls. To all the fuck mooks who think cheat curls are okay, you can't use Olympia-era Schwarzenegger techniques when you have junior movie Schwarzenegger estrogen levels. I tell him to kill himself for lifting like C.T. Fletcher, but he's also around the same age, so I'd rather just wait for nature to take its course. Flabitar the Last Barbender. We meet again. Louis Marco might like you, but I'm not Louis Marco, you fucking blob. As many of you know, I judge people's character in large part based on their lifting form. From the looks of this shit show, he's no mensch, he's just a fucking schmuck. Shoutouts to Quarter Squad gang. Chest cupped, chest cupped? Good girl. No, I absolutely do not salute this perversion of a perfectly good exercise. Thankfully, the Quarter Squad police have closed this case, and this airhead closed their Instagram account. Oh my god. Good fucking morning, goddammit! Welcome to another episode of Smaller by the Day, my mother show CrossFit fucker. I mean, my CrossFit show motherfucker. Gotta switch the words around to confuse the viewers. Right, babe? Here's an L5%er going for 435. 435, you mean your hernia live? CrossFitters don't lift for white lights, they lift for Instagram likes. Whatever it takes, goddammit. 498, that's quite a lot of big girls, flanked by some little girls. Did it so many times I had to use my arms to help. Too bad you're not talking about your home abortions. Besides, those fedora tippers help too, milady. A chick who doesn't go down all the way, that lift imitating life. Not yet, Blahino. That look of concentration. That feel when the distance between the spotter's eyebrows exceeds the distance that Cameron moved the bar. And why the pussy pad? There was no chance you were gonna bring that to your chest, so it's not like you were gonna bruise the skin around your flag nor fail tattoo. Slip in the dick. Slipping a disc. Pick both. He's got bands around his knees and ankles, looking like he's under arrest at home, even though he's arresting his gains at the gym. Of course the biggest dipshits never use rubbers correctly because they're inner city in the suburbs. Slowpoke Rodriguez here calls himself the Boulder. The way he lumbers forward before awkwardly backsliding, like Vince G's YouTube output, he must be this Boulder. Also, unless you're being spied on, there's nobody else on the other side of the mirror. And I have no doubt that you're hungrier than I am. Naudi Aguilar trapped in a churro factory for 10 years looking ass motherfucker. Too bad the only functional pattern you know is the ice cream truck route. Vegan alert, I will never surrender. Well, you must be a vegan because you fight like a tomato can and follow fitness trends like a herb. Besides, your legs already surrendered to atrophy. You and your CrossFit buddy Rick Ross need to release a follow-up to I Changed a Lot and call it We Made No Gains. Congratulations, you played yourself in Mike Tyson's Punch-Out as King Hippo.